Here I've browsed to the internet-facing load balancer, which is just load balancing among our 3 web server front ends. Just as we saw earlier, the app server information indicates nothing but errors because the web servers are not configured to connect to the application servers using the internal load balancer we just created. So let's go ahead and remedy that. Let's go ahead and open SSH sessions to Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3. Let's look up the IP address of the internal load balancer. To do that, we'll do an NS lookup and then paste in the fully qualified domain name. As I said, an internal load balancer's fully qualified domain name is resolvable only within its VPC. Here, it resolves to 2 private IP addresses. The load balancer, because it's using the internal scheme, does not have a publicly routable IP address, nor does it have a publicly resolvable fully qualified domain name. That means that traffic between our web tier and our application tier is going to stay within the VPC. It's not going to ever hit the internet. Okay, the first order of business is to destroy the web server container we created earlier. We need to destroy it so we can create a new one that's configured to point to the internal load balancer. We'll do a sudo docker ps to take a look at the running containers, and we'll destroy the container by referencing a portion of its container ID. We'll do sudo docker rm, and then I'm just going to type b1 and then -f to force the deletion. And now I'm going to hit the up arrow to retrieve the command we used earlier to create the container. There it is, and I'm going to move the cursor to the left until I get just to the right of web 1, and I'm going to do -e app server equals, and then http:// and I'm going to go ahead and paste in that fully qualified domain name, :8080, and then a close quote. Now, this parameter sets an environment variable containing the full URL of the internal load balancer, including the port 8080. The logic of the web front end looks at this environment variable to determine how it should connect to the application tier. So just think of this as reprogramming our web front end and telling it how to connect to the application back end. Okay, let's go ahead and hit enter, and then let's go on to our SSH session with web 2. And we're going to do the same thing here, sudo docker ps, sudo docker rm d6. And to make things go quicker, I'm just going to go ahead and paste in the command here on web 2, and then we'll jump over to web 3. Take a look at the running containers, sudo docker rm, and we're going to remove this container, and then we'll go ahead and paste in the new command. Next, let's go back over to the EC2 console and take a look at our load balancers. Let's look at the web LB load balancer, and let's highlight its DNS name. And then we'll go ahead and right click, go to it. Now check this out. Look under the app server information. It shows the container host name is app3, the protocol is HTTP, and the port is 8080. Let's go ahead and refresh. And this time we get a different application server, app2. Let's refresh again. And this time we get app3. So we know internal load balancing is working. Also, notice the web server, web1. If we refresh again, we get load balanced to web 2, which is the same behavior that we saw earlier. So this looks great. But we've got one more piece of the web application that we need to get working, and that's the database. Notice up at the top we've got 2 buttons, View Data and Enter Data. Let's go ahead and click on View Data. Now clicking this button sets off a chain of events. First, the web server that we're connected to reaches out to one of the application servers. The application server then tries to open a connection to a MySQL database, pull all the records from a certain table, and then pass those records back to the web server. The web server then in turn should display those records. But that doesn't happen. Instead, after a moment, we get a big ugly error, database server unavailable, because obviously we haven't set up the database server yet. So that's exactly what we're going to do next.